Hey, everybody. So if you have been hanging out with us for the last couple seasons of the podcast, you probably remember us mentioning Flaututi in our past episodes. Our friend Molly Sharp, who incidentally was also a guest in season 1, started Flaututi to share her awesome duet arrangements of standard viola rep, which are great for teaching, and it has now grown into a wide-ranging catalog of one-of-a-kind resources for violists and beyond. Steph, do you remember when we played one of the duets from a holiday bundle together?
Yes, it's one of my most cherished holiday memories.
Aww.
But actually, one of my favorites is something that all string instrumentalists would love. It's called Making Double Stops Ring, a guided exploration of just intonation. And Molly actually shared the viola version with us last year, and I am not exaggerating when I say that it completely changed the way I think about intonation. No one has ever explained it to me like this before. I think that we all realize on some level that a B in all situations is not the same, but why?
Yeah. Have you ever had that classic argument in a string quartet setting when you're trying to tune a chord and maybe we're playing that B and we're being told, no, it needs to go lower. No, it needs to go higher. It needs to go here. Wouldn't it be amazing to save all those hours for our string quartet students with no debate? We just know where it's supposed to go. Everyone agrees because there's only one way.
Right. You can just gift them copies of this book.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing personal. Just here's a book about intonation. Well, Molly has made it easy for all of us to play in tune. So whether you play viola, violin, cello, or bass, there's a version for you. You can find this pragmatic book, viola duet arrangements of classic viola repertoire, and so much more at vlatutti.com under Marketplace, or look in this episode's show notes.
Welcome to the Viola-centric podcast. We are two curious violists finding inspiration through authentic and challenging conversations in the professional music world. I'm Liz.
And I'm Steph. Let's jump in the deep end. Hi.
Hey, everybody. Guess what? It's the recap nobody asked for, episode 3.
You can't get away from us doing this recap. We're doing it. It's going in your feeds,
admit,
like it or not.
It's really fun. Yeah.
It is fun.
I'm enjoying myself, and I'm glad you did it. I'm glad you... No, not that you did it, that you urged me to do it.
I roped you into it.
Gently nudged. I had to say okay, you know?
Mm-hmm.
There's this takes two to tango, and it's worth it. It's totally worth it.
Yay, I'm glad.
So what I was going to say to you before I hit the record button was, I don't have as many notes for this episode because I actually kind of enjoyed this episode. I was more into it.
The characters are developing, and I'm becoming a little bit more attached to them. It's not... You know what? I can kind of see past... At the beginning, I was very intent and critical of all of the instrument playing and all of the things that were wrong with it. And now that's kind of softened, and I'm kind of suspending disbelief a little bit.
Yes. Well, and weirdly enough, I mean, we'll get into it when we talk about the scenes, but weirdly enough, I feel like everything is starting to feel a little more like stuff that could happen. I found myself multiple times in the episode being like, that's not that crazy. That like could happen in our lives, which felt refreshing. Also, I forgot to lead off with this. This is what I put in all caps when I saw the little screenshot image of the episode when you go to play it. Jason Schwartzman.
I know.
We got a Jason Schwartzman appearance, which is like a real, I don't know, is that sort of a throwback to people of our generation who will see it and be like, oh, Jason Schwartzman, he was in all those movies when we were younger. Like,
yeah, well, it lends a little credibility, I think, for me.
That's so true. That's so true.
Like, he saw something in this. He's like, you know what, I can do something with that character.
Yeah,
and he does. Spoiler alert.
Does. Oh my god, I can't wait to talk about that because it's so on point. But but first, were you super excited for the first scene?
I was like, yes, we're back on Broadway. So we catch up with
Get some more
the
context.
Broadway production of Oedipus. And it was hilarious. I thought it was hilarious because I just finished a run of a show. And so this felt very poignant to me. We see the main character up on stage and we're seeing it through a recording device. So someone is like bootlegging, obviously.
His hot take. Hot bootleg.
Yes. This production of Oedipus. But it flashes down to the pit and what the pit musicians are doing while they're not playing. And okay, nobody in my production was doing this, but there's a guy eating noodles.
Yep. Somebody vaping.
There's some, yes. And then there's someone knitting, which is not that far off. Right. Not that far off at all. When you know a show really well and you know basically what you need to listen for before you come in again, I could totally see somebody like picking up some knitting needles and, finishing them off their scarf or whatever.
I need to do a little research because wasn't there something in the pit, maybe by the drummer, it was like a Styx like flag or poster or something at the very beginning?
Oh, I didn't see that.
And I was wondering if maybe one of the people in the pit is in Styx, like if it was like a funny cameo kind of thing. I need to look that up. I thought that was really funny. And also, I caught it later, so this was in a later scene, but I just wanted to say I heard what the title is, which is Oedipus's Toga. It's the name of the musical. Okay. Which is so stupid.
Another funny, not funny, but like crazy story I heard about pit work. I have a friend who toured with Hamilton, and she was telling me that during the first year of your run with a tour, a national tour, you cannot sub out at all.
Oh my God.
So if you get sick, you have to just like take some drugs and do it. She said for a while their drummer was super sick and he just had a bucket next to his drum set. So it's brutal down there. Yeah. Those tours are completely life consuming.
That is like the definition of trenches.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, literally in the trenches. Oh. But it doesn't look like life is that hard for these musicians. And what we find out is this opening scene, the main character, Oedipus, sees the person recording the production and basically calls them out and walks off and completely quits the production. And so they have to cancel the show, which is what we learn later.
He he tackles the guy. Yeah. He flies off the stage, which is kind of a dream. Like, I've been to some comedy shows where they make you lock your phone before you go in and you can't have access to it until you're out because they don't want people taking video. Yeah. Dave Chappelle, I've been to a couple of shows. And actually, I think Aziz Ansari was the same. Anyway, they are filming for a special, so they don't want you to give any of the jokes away, basically. And and somehow, there's always some disrespectful person who insists on having their phone out. Like, somehow they sneak it in past the guards, and so they're playing on their phone or whatever. And I do have to say, like, even as an audience member, I get very irritated by that. I feel like I feel validated by someone on stage rushing the guy taking video of them illegally. It's very funny. Very, very funny. But yeah, then now it's no more.
Yes,
no more
so now that work is gone.
Yep.
And then we flash to the rehearsal. So they're still preparing this concert where
now they're doing
the
Hungarian
dance has replaced what was it, Mahler 8?
Mahler 8, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so they don't need 5 oboes.
Yeah, so we're seeing Rodrigo at the front of the orchestra, and he's wearing ridiculous thing on his head. Well, what is he wearing?
Why is he wearing it?
And why?
Is it Hungarian?
This, I don't know.
Maybe he's getting in the spirit?
It's some kind of head wrap, and I don't want to say something insensitive, but I don't think that he belongs to the culture that would normally wear this head wrap.
Yeah, it's hard to know. It's definitely hard to know what the head wrap is and why he's wearing it.
Why he's appropriating it.
Maybe someone might know. Maybe someone can tell us what it was and whether or not he was appropriating. I don't know. Maybe there's something in Latin American culture that...
Oh, yeah. I mean, who knows?
Yeah. I felt like I was really interested in watching how there's like obvious musicians and then there's obvious actors. It's so clear who's who. But honestly, I don't know, like up to a certain point, I felt like it was a pretty legitimate rehearsal kind of thing going on.
Yeah, he's obviously trying to connect with the orchestra. So he's endearing himself to them. I really loved
that whole, like, he made this speech about, you know, the fact that it's not about any individual person, and it's not about him, it's about the music. And what I loved is he was giving this, like, really meta kind of inspirational talk. And then as soon as he leans over to the other one and says, so he, like, wants us to go faster?
Does he want it louder or faster?
And I thought, well, yes, there's that musician in every orchestra who's like not getting swept up in the message and doesn't understand what's being said at all. It's like, so is he asking us just to go faster?
I mean, I've been there too, though. Like the conductor says something totally abstract and you just don't know how to interpret it. So do you want us to play louder there? Do you want more crescendo? Can you just lay it out for some of us?
I wonder if maybe this is a thing that music directors should take note of, that there should be a hybrid, because I always respond better to abstract, just always. But like, they probably need to be able to infuse us with both.
Yes. You need to speak to your Liz's and your Stephanie's.
That's right. Yeah, that was pretty...
Yeah. So he says, music happens in the silence between the notes, which is a trope that we've all heard many, many times.
Yes.
I rolled my eyes so hard when he said that I think that my eyes never were back to normal.
Yeah, that might have been a quote for the Muggles out there. You know, like they don't understand that we have heard that for our whole lives. But I did tell Matt. So I was watching it with Matt, and and when they started doing the silent symphony exercise, so then we took this silence really literally, and we had a mimicking orchestra. Like everyone was pretending to play their instruments, and I laughed pretty hard. But then I said, actually, I'll be honest, I could imagine a director saying, nobody play a note, just look at your music, I will conduct, and you hear what you want to play in it. But they probably wouldn't make us pretend.
Oh, no, probably not. Yeah. Yeah, that actually happens a little bit later. Yeah.
Oh, does it? Oh, I skipped. Oh, okay.
Yeah. They flash back to it. I mean, yeah, they're doing like kind of a cutscene.
Oh, is this after the break? Oh, yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Right.
So Union Bob's like...
After he says music is in the silence, Union Bob.
Union Bob says, it's time for our bathroom break. Which is, yeah, it's kind of funny. We see some of the orchestra members and like what they talk about. Cynthia's talking to a violist who has a wedding gig later in the day.
Rich person wedding gig out on the island or whatever they said.
Yes. And I was like, yes, that sounds about right.
Yeah. And the one guy's like, what's the Wi-Fi password? I was like, this is all very accurate. This is what a break looks like when we go on break. People pairing off and talking as they exit the stage. Yep.
Yeah. The timpanist dealing drugs, you know, as they do.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And then we flash to Cynthia's using the restroom. And of course, Rodrigo has to use the women's restroom because it's cleaner.
It's cleaner.
And this gives them a chance to interact.
Yeah.
And for us to wonder if there's something going to happen with them.
Yeah. Yeah. She's putting some signals out there.
Yeah.
She showed him her high thigh tattoo.
Yeah. So she flashes him her bass clef tattoo, which is like on the inner part of her thigh, quite far up. And he's like, oh yeah, I saw that when you were playing. How is she playing the cello where not only, okay, I understand how playing cello works, how you have to sit, but is your skirt hiked up that far also?
Yeah, I would think that, I don't know. I would think that no cellist would probably wear something like that, but I think that from a non-musician perspective, the idea of these women having an instrument between their legs is too, like, spicy to pass up, and so they had to put something in the scene that's like, her skirt is so short he sees her inner thigh. Like, that would never happen in real life, I don't think, beyond a certain age. But I did have a funny, like, one of the orchestra directors in the area, my friend whose dad was an orchestra director for many, many years in high school. He had, like, a black, like, cloth that was, like, 4x4 or something. And if any girls in school came to their orchestra concert to play and they were, like, not wearing a long enough skirt, he would make them put it on their legs.
That actually triggers a memory. I was in like high school or something, and I was wearing a very nice dress, a formal black dress, and it had a slit, one of those like overlapping kind of skirt slits.
Yep.
Where when you're standing, it doesn't even look like there's a slit, but then you sit down, and I remember that awkward struggling to keep it appropriately positioned while I was playing.
Yep.
And during intermission, a mom from the audience, clearly as a mom, said, "Here, honey, I think you need this." She gave me a safety pin.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
I guess she could see that I was kind of struggling with it, but that's like burned in my brain.
Yeah, sometimes we make these wardrobe choices and we don't really think about the consequences of the wardrobe.
Well, and I was early in my playing career too, so I had no idea like what to
Can I tell you, this is like an embarrassing admission. Actually, it's not anymore, because I was just thinking so, there were like these real enforced dress codes for girls, like, and it's still to this day, this is a thing, and we've talked about it before. I would purposely try to get away with wearing the shortest skirt possible.
That sounds like you.
And I realize now it wasn't so much about like trying to look a certain way. It was about being like, no, I'm going to wear what I want to wear. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, I think you're like obliger/questioners.
Yeah.
You're on that spectrum.
Or down to rebel. It's like obliger to rebel. Yeah, that's true. Because if I get into like resistance mode, like by nature I'm an obliger. If I get into resistance, I go into rebel. I don't go into, yeah. I've never thought about that before, but I do have kind of a rebellious streak. Okay.
Yeah,
anyway, that's wardrobe adventures.
So in the
was a
in the
sexy
restroom.
Moment. I mean, it was sexy.
I mean, yeah, it was sexy. She's sexy.
Yeah.
And he gives her his bracelet because she admires his bracelet. And so that comes back later.
Yeah. And said something else about, something
a souvenir.
A souvenir.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's collecting her souvenirs.
Yeah.
Located in a historic mansion in Tacoma Park, Maryland, you might get the impression that the team at Potter Violins are as formal as the breathtaking building that they work in. But when you go inside, instead you'll find the most relatable, skilled, and friendly staff.
Yes, the people at Potter's are what really make it a special place. I love visiting because I know that whoever I work with is not going to make me feel like I'm crazy or just being picky. They're kind of like your favorite bartender. They're great listeners who give you what you need without judgment.
Yes, their technicians are not only super talented, creative, and resourceful, they take the time to collaborate with you so that the process of getting your instrument at its best really feels like a partnership.
So if you're in the area, definitely stop by and introduce yourself to Chris, Rob, Kimberly, Derek, Jim, Melissa, and the whole team, or visit potterviolins.com to find what you need online.
It's so fitting then that their shop is in this beautiful old house, because the staff at Potter's really makes it feel like home.
Season 3 is sponsored by the Arc Rest. You know, Liz and I are always being asked about our Arc Rests, and we're happy to share how much we love them. The freedom of movement has been life-changing for me.
Me too. And I love how using the Arc Rest allows my instrument to vibrate fully. And depending on how my body's feeling, I can also change the placement of the bass.
Although Aaron and Tigran started the company in their home workshop, they've come a long way, continuing to innovate by experimenting with harder and softer woods, and even new materials like fiberglass.
There are basses for violin, viola, and even for small fractional instruments. And there are foam pads of different thicknesses, so you can find one that fits your body or instrument perfectly.
And the guys over at ArcRest are sharing a special discount code for our listeners. Use the code ViolaCentric for 10% off anything on their site.
Yes, check out their offerings at thearcrest.com. That's TheArcrest.com. And don't forget to use the code ViolaCentric.
Being freelance musicians means gigging in lots of different places with very unpredictable lighting situations.
Oh my gosh, yes. How many times have you shown up to a church gig and wondered if you'll actually be able to see the music by showtime?
Many times. Or it's a cocktail hour in a restaurant with ambient mood lighting at best.
We've all been there and have used those alien-looking bendy lights that only light up the top of the page, so that by the bottom of the music, you're sometimes just guessing, or maybe we'll call it being creative. We didn't know it at the time, but the Aria lights could have saved us lots of eye strain and unplanned improvisation.
Yes, and with a rechargeable battery that lasts 8 hours, you'll never have to carry backup AA's in your case. You'll just charge it up at home and take the Aria light to your gig. The battery will even hold a charge for years between uses, not that you would go that long.
Thank you so much to Aria Lights for their support this season. Please check them out at arialights.com.
And then we flash to
A cute date.
Yeah, so Alex and Hailey are having a day date where they're day drinking.
Yep.
And she's bummed that her show has been canceled. And she's like, what am I going to do for money? Which is very relatable.
Yeah, she's feeling very despondent about the various ways that her job hasn't turned out the way. Her career isn't turning out the way she wants it to right now. And and they're drinking out of a bag, which I really admire. Sharing a little beer or something in a bag, and he's like lifting her spirit. He's doing a very good job. Alex is being very supportive.
He's a good listener.
Yeah, I like those scenes. Now we get to the meat of the episode. Jason Schwartzman, aka Bradford Sharp.
Yes. So we flash to Thomas in his office, and he's expecting a journalist who's going to do a profile piece for him in some kind of, I don't know, publication. So Jason Schwartzman, or what's his name, Bradford Sharp,
yes, Bradford,
shows up with his little backpack,
his little podcast backpack,
and we find out that he has a podcast. And not only does he have a podcast, but it's called Be Sharp.
Yes, which is, we find out later, but yes, it's 100%. There's so many things about this. I literally, when we were watching, I was like, oh my God, we're going to record a podcast about someone recording a podcast.
Yes, and so all of those little inside
dream within a dream
jokes are hilarious too. So he's kind of surprised that it's a podcast. And
he was expecting cameras, and he was talking about his best angles, and
a little
embarrassed.
So we're left kind of hanging at this point in the episode, like, what's this podcast going to be like? We want to see more of Jason Schwartzman,
That's
of course. And they flash over to Hailey and Alex, who are now busking at some kind of park in New York.
Yep.
And she's playing oboe and he's interpretive dancing.
Yeah, I'm not sure how good of a dancer Alex is. You know,
I wasn't that impressed with his moves.
For someone who's studying ballet at Juilliard, I think he could have been doing better. But I will say, I really liked the sentiment behind this little adventure that they had, because it's like, and it's true for us too, that there's somewhere, anywhere, you could play the way you're trained to play and people will go, oh my God, that's amazing.
You know, that's a really good point because I had more of a critical eye on. And when all of the crowd started cheering and applauding, I was like, these New Yorkers have low standards.
Yeah. Now, there would never be that crowd. Like, they would not assemble to see.
No one's going to stop to watch an oboe player and a dancer.
Well, it is
I'm sorry,
weird.
oboe players don't. It's nothing personal.
I think it's a weird combo of things happening. Maybe because Alex was like rousing them up. Maybe that's why there was a crowd. Like if she was just standing there playing oboe by herself, people would give her money probably, but they wouldn't like.
Maybe
there wouldn't be a massive crowd that starts cheering.
I don't know. Oboe players, have you ever busked?
What has your experience been?
What did you rake in?
But I think the concept of like. Because I feel this way often, you know, so much of our work can be like, oh God, nobody cares what we're doing, or I'm not good enough for anything.
Yes.
And the truth is like, it's just not true. You know, there's
100%.
Lots of people who think it's incredible what we do. So I thought that was a nice that was nice. I like those scenes. I like the Alex Hailey scenes. Doing a good job. Okay, so back to B sharp. Oh, the way he says it when he's like, welcome to B sharp with Bradford Sharp.
This gave me a lot of flashbacks to our podcasting and writing intros.
Yes.
So he starts recording, gets everything set up, and he's reading an intro for Thomas, who's the conductor emeritus. And it just cracked me up how he was reading this long, extended intro, and Thomas is like obviously getting bored and antsy. And I wonder about our recording sessions and our guests. So.
Yes. He has the same microphone we do.
I noticed that too.
I was very excited about that.
So if it's good enough for Brandon Sharp.
That's right. Now, the only thing that's a bummer is that clearly he's not there to interview Thomas about Thomas. He's there to interview Thomas about Rodrigo. Right. And it keeps, like, Thomas just can't get a break. I feel bad for Thomas in this scenario because I'm like, oh man, he thinks he's getting to talk about his career and instead he's just being pressed. Oh, there's the Silent Symphony. I'm looking at it in my notes. I did jump way ahead.
Yeah.
But I laughed so hard at this scene when Thomas is like, I'll be right back. And he leaves and he finds the random intern who's got the one arm who's making copies constantly. And he says at first, come and get me in 10 minutes and say I have my appointment, can't wait. And I thought to myself, like, 10 minutes is a long time if you're trying to get out of this thing.
Yeah. And he has second thoughts, and he's like, okay,
thoughts.
5 minutes. Come get me in 5 minutes.
Yes. So then we shift into rehearsal again, where the Silent Symphony is going on. And Rodrigo is just berating the trombonist and trying to get him to do more and more and more. And this poor trombonist just
collapses.
Keels over.
He keels over, yes. From fake playing.
He exhausts himself so much from the fake playing that he had a heart episode, basically.
Yes. Yeah. And so they go to see him in the hospital later. And he's like deathbed bequeathing things to people. And so he's like, Cynthia.
Yeah.
Cynthia, thank you for coming to see me. Can you take over the orchestra committee? And I was like, this is not the way that things work.
Yeah.
This is not procedure.
That's literally what I thought. I was like, this is a very tender moment, but this is not how this would go down normally. You can't bequeath someone the orchestra committee chair.
Yes.
FYI, everybody, it has to be voted on. You can't, that's not a thing. For those of you who don't know. P.S. I was saying, I love this actor who's the trombone guy. He's actually kind of not well known, but he's been in a lot of things. I originally thought he was in The Holiday, which is a movie I'm obsessed with. I love that movie so much.
I think I've seen that.
But now that I thought about it, I think he was in Her Shoes also a movie I really love. Lots of chick flick stuff going on there.
I don't know either of those movies.
What? You have to watch them both. Start with The Holiday, though. You will love it. I promise. Right. It's worth it. My sister and I, it doesn't matter like what time. A lot of times they show that in July on TV. And we're like, are you watching The Holiday right now? And she's like, I'm watching.
Is it a Christmas movie?
It is a Christmas movie. Oh. It's a rom-com set at Christmas time. That's what I would call it. Anyway. Yeah, so obviously Rodrigo's feeling pretty guilty. So he serenades him on the violin.
Little lark ascending.
I don't know if I'm just feeling more generous or what, but I also thought that was very tender.
What music director would come and I can't think of anybody who'd visit me in the hospital. Luke, maybe. I bet Luke would.
Yeah, if it happened, yeah, Luke is probably the one of the few, yeah. Mm-hmm. Who knows? But it was certainly nice. Wouldn't serenade them with a beautiful song. And you could see, like, it was like a tender moment. It was just, yeah, all around kind of lovely.
Yeah, so I'm liking him a little bit better.
Yeah.
And then we go over to Alex and Hailey are in a cab, and they've been drinking all day, so they're a little bit bold.
Yeah, she's a little fired up.
Yeah, and Hailey is ready to give people what for about her paycheck.
Yep.
For her, 15 minutes of fame. So she goes over to Symphony Hall and she takes it up with the payroll people. And they're clearly the payroll person and Shannon, who's Rodrigo's assistant, right? They're kind of like, you can tell they're making fun of Hailey and what happened.
Why? That isn't real. That would never happen.
No.
It'd be more like, oh, this was uncomfortable that this happened to her. It'd be like that. It wouldn't be like, that was so fun. They're like hysterically laughing at her. It's
like
very
a Mean Girls episode, but it's not.
Exaggerated Mean Girls, yes.
Yes. So she gives him a piece of her mind.
Yeah, she did good. That was pretty epic meltdown.
Yeah. She's like, I've been practicing 5 hours a day for as long as I can remember. Mm-hmm. How long have you been sitting at a desk practicing being a...
Yeah.
I was like, oh.
Boom.
I said, get him. Go off, Hailey. That's
also, oboists, double reed players, do you practice 5 hours a day, 7 days a week?
We still don't have that answered. How long can you actually physically play the oboe before you should not be playing the oboe anymore?
I just feel like that's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah.
So one day we'll find this out. But yeah,
and clearly she hasn't been practicing the oboe 5 hours that day because she was day drinking with Alex in the park.
Yeah, she needed to take a break.
Yeah.
But Rodrigo happens to hear a lot of this tirade.
The tail end of it, yeah, where she was bad-mouthing him.
And then she apologizes, and he's like, no, don't apologize. You should tell me what you think. And I find that refreshing. And I liked this scene, too, because he was really honest with her in this way that you're like, you can see it and you can go, yeah, that's true. Like, he knows that she is something really special, but she's not ready to play in that group. Now, I mean, you could argue that like forcing her to tune when the principal should be tuning, doing all those things. Yeah, he really set her up for failure. But anyway, so I was a little confused by this. So does he basically say, you're my new assistant? Is he going to fire the other girl?
I don't know. I thought maybe it was a different job.
Oh, just like a tag along, follow him everywhere and do things like cut his hair.
I don't know. I didn't get that impression, but then I wrote really big in capital letters, synchronicity, because she was just talking with Alex about how she had no work. She didn't know what she was going to do. Mm-hmm. And she put it out into the universe, and then she goes all fired up to the office, and she comes out of it with a job.
Yeah.
A really good job.
Yeah.
That puts her on the path towards what she wants to do anyway.
That's right. So. Very good way to tie it all up. And
Yeah.
it was the first episode I've watched so far where I was like, we got to the end and I was like, oh, that's the end. I wasn't like, how much longer?
Much longer do we have?
So I'm excited for episode 4. Now we get to see where they go.
Yeah. And then she gets to cut his hair.
Yeah. He says, cut my hair.
Yeah.
So stay tuned, I guess, everybody. Episode 4 in a couple weeks.
Whether you want it or not.
Let us know what you think. Please.
Please. Oboists, bassoonists. Let us know.
Yeah. Bassoonists.
You know who you are.
Thank you so much for listening today. And thanks also to our season sponsors, Arkrest, Potter Violins, and Aria Lights.
Another thanks to Alto Clef Gifts, where you can purchase Viola-centric shirts and mugs and a variety of other fun items featuring our beloved Alto Clef.
If you loved today's episode, consider writing us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. And if you want the chance to hang with us and have access to behind-the-scenes audio and video recordings, check out our new Patreon. The Viola-centric theme music was written and produced by JP Wokeman and is performed by Steph and myself.
Thanks again for listening. Let's talk soon.